Recently came across this documentary on Netflix. I watched it. It was so disturbing to my spirit, I could barely sleep. What did we learn in second grade? First comes love, then comes marriage, then comes the baby and the baby carriage, right? These were the facts of life, right? But it seems today the facts of life are totally up for grabs. When we mess with the very origin of life, which is to say, when we mess with the sexual act, when we mess with the reality that sex leads to babies, when we fail to hold babies and sex together, all friggin' hell breaks loose. That's why this was so disturbing to my spirit. I mean, this is where it goes. I'm gonna show you the trailer to this documentary, and then I'll share a few thoughts after that. Let's take a look.
What if I were to tell you that there is a man alive today who may have fathered over 1,000 children? What kind of man would do that?
I always wanted to be a mom.
We wanted to have a family together.
A sperm donor is making up 50% of your child.
I got to know him on the internet.
He had curly hair.
We really hope that our kids have his hair.
We were totally sold.
I'm ready to have beautiful babies.
9 months later, I had a baby boy.
But that wonderment was totally ripped from us. She said, your donor is quite famous. This guy is a serial donor.
How many? How many children do you have now?
It was a shock.
He lied.
There weren't 4 families or 5 families. There are already hundreds.
It's become an addiction for him. He actually can't stop himself.
It's a worldwide problem.
He has no intentions of stopping.
Why are you putting so many children on this earth?
The problem's getting bigger and bigger. You cannot stop him.
When you're breeding livestock and cattle, that is more regulated than sperm donation.
Something like this never happened before. It's a very dangerous situation.
We didn't think that this could get any more twisted, but it did.
My God, what is going on?
I'm gonna take you down with a bunch of other moms who will stand behind me. We were determined to stop him. Don't mess with a mom.
How about, yeah, don't mess with a mom, but how about don't mess with sex? Don't mess with the facts of life. I mean, my heart goes out to all of these moms, right? This guy, it's called, obviously, The Man with 1,000 Kids, but part of the documentary is they actually try to do a more as accurate as possible estimate of how many kids this guy has actually fathered around the world. And on the low side of the estimate, a minimum of 600. A higher side of the estimate could be upwards of 3,000 children that this one man has, put this in quotes, fathered by masturbating into a test tube and having his sperm frozen and then advertising, sorry for the chuckle here, but if we don't laugh, we'll weep, and maybe we should. I mean, maybe we really should just weep. But the vanity here, these women were attracted to this man's sperm because he was, quote, beautiful. They loved his long blonde hair and blue eyes. They wanted designer children. And his billboard online, that's what I want. I want my baby to look like that. When we mess with the facts of life, when we sunder what God has joined, right? It's God who joined sex and babies, right? And we must not separate what God has joined. This horror is really the logical flip side of the horror of contraception. Contraception says, I want the sex without the babies. These reproductive technologies that we've just embraced as if it's fine and normal and no problem, it's the flip side. It's saying, I want the babies without the sex. Either way, we are messing with the facts of life, and we end up treating the sexual act itself like a product that can be bought and sold for my pleasure. And we end up treating what should be the natural fruit of a loving sexual embrace, what would make it loving? What would make it a responsible choice? What makes sex loving and responsible? It's the recognition that this act could result in a child, and we love that and we embrace that, and we are committed to honoring the dignity of this child and raising this child together. And that commitment is called marriage, right? The basic principle of Catholic teaching here comes to light. And you don't have to be Catholic to get it. It's this: marriage, sex, and babies go together, and in that order. Insert contraception into that equation, and all hell will break loose, and this is part of the hell. Separate fertility from the sexual act. The sexual act gets treated as a product. People get treated as products for my sexual pleasure. Then we take, oh, there's that baby thing over there now. Now it's divorced from the whole sexual equation, but I want that baby without the sex. Now the baby is the product. And this is how men like this guy can get away with having anywhere from 600 to 3,000 children. And part of the documentary is they show you the numbers. There's like 125 of his children within a very close geographical area in Europe. The ramifications of that for possible incestuous relationships, mercy God in heaven. I'm hearing, just as I have this attitude in me of I think a righteous anger that all this is going on because in our pride and our arrogance, we haven't listened to wisdom. We also have to have compassion. And I'm hearing the words of Christ from the cross: forgive them, Father, they don't know what they're doing. I'll just close with this thought too. One of the threads of this documentary, the way it's edited, the way it's, the questions that are asked and the way it's all put together, understandably, they want you to have sympathy for these mothers, and we should have sympathy for these mothers. But none of the mothers, they're so angry and rightly angry at this man, but none of them are really reckoning with their own disordered choices. Even here, it takes two to tango. This manipulative approach to procreation is the problem. It's not only that this man is willing to have anywhere from 600 to 3,000 children. Yes, that's a huge problem. But what about on the other side? It's also the problem that women are willing to buy his sperm to have a child that doesn't flow from, is not the fruit of a loving marital act. No one has a right to a child. When we think of the child as a right that I get to have, it's my right to have you, that child is a product. The only rights that are at stake here, really, are the rights of every child. Every child has the right to be conceived by the loving embrace of a husband and a wife, that is, a man and a woman, who have committed themselves utterly to one another and to the good of all of the offspring that flow from their sexual union. Marriage, sex, babies go together, and in that order. What would the world look like if we respected that? If we respected that order, marriage, sex, babies go together, and in that order, what would the world look like? Worth pondering.